Ambition is a powerful force, driving people to achieve greatness. But when it's fueled by deadly desperation, it can lead to unimaginable consequences. Stay tuned as we uncover the shocking desperation of a young Nigerian in the United States of America and the extraordinary places it led him. John Zikolo had always dreamed of a better life. Growing up in a poor household with limited opportunities in Nigeria, he felt that he had to take matters into his own hands to succeed. After years of saving and planning, he finally applied and got a visa to visit the United States of America at 35 in 2018. He felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as he boarded the plane. He envisioned himself making a new life, finding a good job and eventually bringing his wife and 2 children over to join him. The thought of the endless possibilities awaiting him in the land of opportunity kept him going throughout the long flight from Lagos to Houston. Upon arrival, John was struck by the sheer size and grandeur of the American cities. Everything seemed bigger and more modern than what he was used to back home. He spent the first few days exploring his new surroundings, marveling at the towering skyscrapers and bustling streets. He concluded that America was a place to be. But as the days turned into weeks, reality began to set in. His visa was only for a few months. He had to find a way to stay in America legally at the expiration of the given period. After some time, fear, stress, and uncertainty began to take a toll on him. Let the opportunity not slip away. He must settle down in America. One day, while shopping in a Walmart grocery store, an unexpected encounter changed John's story. Maria Sierra, a 60-year-old Latina-American woman, tripped and fell, scattering her groceries across the floor. Without hesitation, John immediately dropped his shopping basket to rush to her aid, helping her pick up the scattered items. "Thank you, M. John," John replied. "Thank you, John. You're nice and handsome." John grinned. "Thank you, ma'am. You're beautiful too." "Beautiful and lonesome," she said with a smile. John only smiled, seemingly unsure of what Maria meant. "From your accent, it sounds like you're new here." "Yes, ma'am. I just came from Nigeria." "I see. Nigerians are strong people," Maria said with an even wider smile. John nodded. "Here we call people by their names. Call me Maria." "That's my name." "Thanks, Maria," John said, nodding. "We can be friends and I can show you around town," Maria suggested. John looked hesitant. "Don't worry, no husband," Maria said, smiling. "And no wife yet," John said, placing his right hand on his chest and laughing. They exchanged numbers. 2 days later, Maria invited John for coffee. Over coffee, she told John about her life, her late husband, and her children who had moved away. John shared his story, his struggles, and his dreams, careful to avoid mentioning his wife and children in Nigeria. Maria listened intently, offering words of wisdom and encouragement. "I work so hard to get to this level where people consider me rich," Maria said. "You can succeed too if you work hard. This is America, the land of opportunities." John nodded. Over the next few weeks, Maria and John grew closer, bonding over their shared love of cooking and music. Maria introduced John to the vibrant Latin American culture in the city, taking him to festivals and restaurants. As their friendship deepened, Maria invited John to move in with her, citing her large, empty and lonely house and John's struggles to find affordable housing. John hesitated at first, but Maria assured him that he would have his own room and space. As they spent more time together, Maria found herself feeling seen and appreciated by John in ways she hadn't experienced since her husband's passing. John too felt a sense of belonging and support with Maria that he had been missing since leaving Nigeria. One day, they were on a beach with the sun shining down on them. Maria looked John in the eyes and said, "I wish this would continue, John." John casually replied, "It will." Maria, sensing John's casual response, added, I want us to continue spending time together. You make me feel alive and young again." John's face lit up with a smile and he replied, "I feel the same way, Maria. You're an amazing person and I'm so grateful to have met you." John smiled and added, "I have to admit I'm really enjoying spending time with you. You're an amazing person and I feel like I can be myself around you." As the sun began to set, John and Maria walked hand in hand along the beach, feeling happy and content. They talked and laughed, enjoying each other's company. Suddenly, Maria turned to John with tears in her eyes. "John, from the moment I met you, I knew that you were someone special. You've brought light and joy into my life in ways I never thought possible anymore." John's heart swelled with emotion as he took Maria's hand. "You've done the same for me, Maria. You've shown me kindness, generosity, and love when I needed it most." Maria's eyes sparkled as she smiled. "And I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy." "Thank you, Maria," John said, squeezing her hand tighter. "John, in order for us to continue making each other happy, why not we get married?" "Marry me, John." John's heart skipped a beat and he blinked, stunned. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. His thoughts scrambled, quickly darting between the age gap, his family in Nigeria, and the reality of his life at 35 with a 60-year-old woman as his wife. But quickly his pulse quickened as his mind shifted, and a new thought emerged, a sharper one. Marriage with Maria could be the opportunity he had been looking for. Citizenship, security, and a future without fear in America. A smile tugged at his lips, and without another thought he exclaimed, "Yes, yes, 1,000,000 times yes." As the diamond ring slid onto Maria's finger, they wrapped their arms around each other, the warmth of the moment enveloping them like a gentle hug. Maria's eyes sparkled with unbridled joy, her smile radiant as she gazed at the ring. Her happiness was palpable and infectious. Maria introduced John to her family and close friends, presenting him as her loving husband. She took him to her favorite restaurants, scenic spots, and social gatherings, proudly showcasing their love. They attended a wedding of one of Maria's nieces where John was warmly welcomed by Maria's large and boisterous family. As they navigated their new life together, John struggled to reconcile his past and present. He kept his marriage to Maria a secret from his family in Nigeria, fearing their reaction. Meanwhile, Maria's children, though initially shocked, gradually accepted John as their mother's partner since it made her happy. Life was moving smoothly for John and Maria until one evening. The air was thick with the smell of wine and the sound of soft jazz in the club they attended. Maria leaned in, her words slurred, her breath warm on John's ear. "I love you, John. To prove that, I've made you a beneficiary of my life insurance policy. You'll get $2 million when I'm gone while my children get theirs." John's eyes widened, his pupils dilating in surprise. He felt a shiver run down his spine as he processed the information. "Maria, I don't understand." "I spoke in English," Maria said, and repeated what she said. John hugged her tightly. "Maria, I don't know what to say then. May God bless you for your love on me." Maria's smile was radiant, her eyes sparkling with affection. "You don't have to say anything, my love. I want to take care of you, ensure your future is secure. You're my husband, and I have to show love you." John's world stood still. His heart skipped a beat as his thoughts crashed into each other like waves on a rocky shore. $2 million. The figure echoed in his mind like a siren's call. He had always known Maria was wealthy, but for him to benefit that much was strange to him. $2 million. He thought again. For days, John was torn between shock and elation. But as the news sank in, excitement took hold. He had never considered this twist, but now that he knew, he couldn't shake it off. The future seemed brighter, more promising, even if it was still a distant dream. As the weeks turned into months, John found himself returning to that fateful night. His mind replayed the conversation, and a nagging thought crept in. To receive the $2 million, Maria would have to. His thoughts trailed off, unwilling to complete the morbid sentence. But time marched on, and Maria remained a picture of vitality. Her laughter was still music to his ears, her eyes still sparkled with life, and her spirit remained unbreakable. She was still very much alive, and John was left waiting, but for how long? He thought one day, a sense of unease creeping over him. What if they separate before her death? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. $2 million. No, it's too much to lose. With that amount, he would bring his wife and children over and live a good life in America. John's mind began racing with scenarios, each one more unsettling than the last. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was trapped in a delicate balancing act, one that required him to maintain a perfect facade of devotion and love. Maria, a retired certified public accountant, was too smart to be fooled. One misstep and she would suspect foul play and throw him out. John's patience was wearing thin by the day. He couldn't wait any longer for Maria's natural demise. The $2 million life insurance policy loomed in his mind, a tantalizing reward that consumed his every thought. The obsession twisted his sense of morality, leaving him teetering on the edge of desperation. He had an idea. He got a substance that he added to Maria's food daily. Soon, Maria started falling sick more often. To cover up, John rushed her to the hospital, where she was treated and discharged. Maria, still frail from her recent illness, spent her days resting at home, unaware of John's growing malice. One evening, as she lay in the dimly lit living room, John approached her with another tray of food. His hands trembled slightly as he set it before her, a forced smile plastered across his face. Laced within the meal was a carefully measured dose of the poisonous substance, enough to make her gravely ill this time, but not to kill her immediately and arouse suspicion. Maria ate slowly, occasionally casting a weary glance at John, who sat across from her, feigning concern. "You've been so good to me," she murmured, her voice barely audible. The words made John flinch. For a fleeting moment, guilt pricked his conscience, but the image of the insurance payout quickly drowned it out. Within hours, Maria's condition took a sudden turn. Her breathing grew labored, and she clutched her stomach in pain. John sprang into action, calling for an ambulance and performing his role as the panicked husband to perfection. "Please, hurry! She's not breathing right," he shouted into the phone, his voice thick with feigned terror. The tension in the room was palpable as the paramedics arrived. They worked swiftly, stabilizing Maria and transporting her to the hospital. John paced the waiting room, his mind racing. He had to be careful to maintain his facade. The doctors would need answers. Hours passed, and a doctor finally approached him. "John, your wife is in critical condition. We suspect she took some substances not good for her system. We're doing everything we can to save her." John nodded, his face a mask of worry. "Thank you, doctor. Please, save her." Inside, his thoughts were a whirlwind. He had come too far to back down now. The steps had to be flawless. As he sat in the sterile waiting room, John felt a mix of anticipation and dread. The clock ticked on, each second bringing him closer to a future he felt he couldn't lose. A future with $2 million in his account. Maria returned home from the hospital, her body weakened and spirit subdued. She thanked John for his unwavering support, unaware of the dark intent simmering beneath his concerned facade. One evening, as she rested on the couch, John looked at her and made his final decision. He had to end it. One day, John was on night duty in the company where he worked as a technical assistant. Without telling anyone, he sneaked out and went home. The house was silent, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator. He crept into the room, a length of rope hidden behind his back. He hesitated for a moment, staring at Maria's frail form. She stirred slightly but didn't wake. Taking a deep breath, he moved closer, his shadow falling over her. Maria's eyes fluttered open just as John looped the rope around her neck. "John?" She gasped, her voice filled with confusion and fear. His grip tightened and tears blurred his vision as she struggled weakly beneath him. The act felt endless. When it was over, John stood back, his breath coming in ragged gulps. For a moment, he simply stayed there, staring at Maria's lifeless body. A wave of nausea washed over him, but he forced himself to focus. He needed to clean up, to make it look like a natural death or an accident by someone else, not him. He wiped his fingerprints from the scene and rearranged the room before leaving the house. Returning in the morning, John enacted the second part of his performance. He burst through the door, dialing 911 with shaking hands. "My wife!" He screamed into the phone. "She's not breathing. Please send help." His voice cracked with what sounded like genuine anguish. When the paramedics arrived, they found him kneeling beside Maria's body, his face buried in his hands. The investigation began almost immediately. At first, the police appeared sympathetic, but subtle questions hinted at their doubts. "Can you walk us through the last time you saw her alive?" One detective asked, his eyes narrowing slightly as he studied John's demeanor. John stuck to his story, painting a picture of a devoted husband blindsided by tragedy. But small cracks began to show. A co-worker mentioned John's discussion about the insurance and his expectations. The toxicology report revealed traces of poison in Maria's system, raising further questions. Unbeknownst to John, the detectives had begun piecing together a timeline that didn't quite add up. They had handled cases of deaths tied to financial motives like life insurance payouts severally. His carefully constructed facade was starting to crumble, and with each passing day the walls closed in tighter around him. John's confidence faltered as he sat in his living room staring blankly at the muted television. The once comforting image of the insurance payout now felt like a noose tightening around his neck. A knock at the door jolted him from his thoughts. He opened it to find two detectives, their expressions unreadable. "Mr. Zikolo would like you to come down to the station for some additional questions," one of them said. John's heart pounded, but he forced a smile and nodded. "Of course. Anything to help." At the station, the interrogation room felt oppressively small. The detectives' questions became more pointed and John's rehearsed answers began to falter under scrutiny. "Can you explain why the toxicology report found traces of poison in your wife's system?" one detective asked, sliding a report across the table. John's mouth went dry. "Poison? I have no idea. She was always taking different medications. Maybe it was a mix-up?" he stammered. The detectives exchanged a glance. "We've also reviewed your financial records. It seems you were sending so much money to Nigeria. Can you explain why you recently inquired about the payout process for Maria's life insurance policy?" John's composure cracked. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he struggled to maintain his lies. The walls felt like they were closing in, the weight of his actions pressing down on him. For the first time, he began to realize that his carefully laid plan might not save him after all. In the days that followed, the evidence against John mounted. Detectives uncovered receipts for the poison, testimony from a pharmacist who remembered his nervous demeanor, and incriminating searches on his home computer. Faced with the overwhelming evidence, John finally broke down during a grueling interrogation, confessing to everything, asking for forgiveness. The trial was swift, with prosecutors presenting a damning case against him. John's cold calculation and betrayal of Maria's love and trust shocked the courtroom. The jury deliberated for less than a day before returning with a guilty verdict. John was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As he was led away in handcuffs, the weight of his greed and actions fully settled on him. The $2 million he had coveted so desperately now seemed meaningless compared to the life he had destroyed, including his own. Maria's family found some solace in the verdict, though the loss of their beloved Maria left a void that could never truly be filled. The case served as a chilling reminder of the lengths some would go to for money, and the devastating consequences of unchecked greed. Thanks for watching. Help spread awareness about the devastating impact of desperation by sharing this story. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful and thought-provoking stories. See you in the next one.